Pithy intro, I'm Sam Aronow, and this is the recap video for my videos on Béla Kun and Jews under Lenin, Faisal, and Atatürk, in which I talk about things I left out of the videos, correct mistakes that I made in the videos, and answer questions from Gaon and Navi level patrons on Patreon. First, a minor correction. Romania wasn't the last country in Europe in which Jews were unemancipated, but it might as well have been. Andorra still didn't officially have Jewish emancipation until 1934, by which time the Vatican City had been created and Nazi Germany had already begun implementing anti-Jewish laws, meaning that there's never technically been a point in history in which Jews have been emancipated across all of Europe. Gaon level patron Cheese 101 asks, can you explain a bit more about Neolog Judaism? In particular, why do you consider it a precursor to Reconstructionist Judaism? Does it still exist among Hungary's Jewish community? Both conservative Judaism and Neolog Judaism derive from the positive historical school of Zacharias Frenkel. If you want to know more about that, see my episode on the Hamburg Temple disputes. So, the way in which Neolog Judaism differed from conservative Judaism initially was mostly branding, and it had to do with Magyarization and Hungary having to be special. But because the Neolog school was much more of a political movement sort of against the Orthodox rabbinate than a coherent religious ideology that was embraced by the general public, it did sort of come to a kind of Reconstructionist philosophy of creating new rules and new traditions. And to answer your second question, yes, not only is Neolog Judaism still extant in Hungary, but the majority of religiously active Hungarian Jews are affiliated with it rather than the Orthodox rabbinate. In an early draft of my script for this episode, I was going to mention someone that a lot of people noticed missing from the video. A couple years after Dziga Vertov's breakthrough in Soviet cinema, he was joined by another man of Jewish parentage named Sergei Eisenstein, and a pretty serious rivalry developed between them. In the first draft of the script, I drew a contrast between Vertov's highly experimental style and Eisenstein's more straightforward, traditional presentation. But I deleted this because, as Noj Rentz pointed out to me, this is an entirely presentist view of the differences between them. For the time, Eisenstein's style of filmmaking was just as experimental as Vertov's, but unlike Vertov, that style ended up becoming much more popular with audiences, both in the Soviet Union and worldwide. So the tradition of film editing that we have today is traditional because Eisenstein basically won. Another omission from the Lenin video. In addition to Dziga Vertov and Mikhail Kaufman, there was a third brother, Boris, who remained in Poland and later continued his career in the United States. Suffice it to say, he wasn't a communist like his brothers were. I'm happy to say I have no corrections or questions for the Faisal video. Gaon level patron Jordan Gorelkin asks, in your video about Jews in Turkey, you did not mention any presence of Zionism amongst Turkish Jewry. Did Turkish Jews participate in Zionism in large numbers, or are they largely unconcerned with the Zionist movement? To which Navi level patron David Ben Yosef added, and supplementally, were groups like Poale Zion and Hashomer Hatzair active in Turkey? Prior to the First World War, the Zionist organization had a field office in Constantinople, and some Zionist politicians attended the University of Istanbul. But there was very little support for Zionism among the local Jewish population. During the War of Independence, Zionism was effectively banned, and while groups like Hashomer continued to operate in the country illegally, they had so little local support that, unlike in Iraq, the Zionist question didn't even warrant controversy or public disavowal. And that's all for today. I'll see you next time as we continue the 1920s in diaspora with some big episodes. Special thanks to my patrons, including Mir Akbar Ali, David Ben Yosef, Jeremy Biskin, Boris Cherny, FC, Jay Fleischman, Osha Gordon, Bob Huddy, Raphael Kellerman, Sol Cohn, Jacob Kossoff, and Jeffrey Schweitzer.